Hello and welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. So in today's video, we are going to discuss some 2-3 topics related to current affairs last week. Okay? So beginning with the first topic, this is the persons with disability issues. Why are we discussing about this? Why are the things running into news? Because of Supreme Court's ruling regarding banning of one of the movies. Okay? So the movie's name was Aankh Micholi. This was banned by Supreme Court, stating that we need to avoid stereotyping and discrimination of persons with disability. We need to stop discriminating with them. Okay? By banning the movie, Supreme Court has said that we need to stop discriminating with these people. Okay? Basically, who are persons with disabilities as per UN Convention on Rights of Person with Disability. UN Convention on Rights of Person with Disability के हिसाब से PWDs or a person with disabilities are those who are long term physically or mentally or intellectually or sensory impairments which does not allow an individual to become equal to all other members of the society. ठीक है? That hinders their full and effective participation in the social development. ठीक है? On an equal basis as compared to rest of the section of society, if an individual either physically or mentally or by sensory impairments or intellectually, they are not able to contribute or not able to participate in social development equally, then we are calling them as person with disability. ठीक है? India में we have defined persons with disability under Person with Disability Act of 2016. An act was passed in 2016 which states that we already included. So as per the act, we have declared approximately 21 different types of disability. ठीक है? The India's Act. The India's Act is not only inclusive of United Nations Convention on Rights of Person with Disabilities definition, but we have taken one step ahead. What is the new definition or what is the step that ahead that we have taken? We have also declared person with benchmark disability. Person with benchmark disability matlab, this is certain benchmark. On an average, this is the disability. In physical disability, this is the disability. In mental, this is the benchmark disability. Benchmark disability matlab, a person will not be able to contribute to the social development because of benchmark disability or above. ठीक है? Below this, they are able to participate with lesser competition, with some kind of restriction, they are able to participate in social development. Okay? But with benchmark disability and above, their contribution to social development is quite low. Okay? So that is how India's Act has gone one step ahead as compared to UN Convention on Rights of Person with Disability. Okay? Now let us talk about what are the guidelines coming from Supreme Court. Supreme Court has stated that we need to avoid the usage of derogatory terms. Derogatory terms में क्या क्या आ जाएंगे? That these people are suffering, they are victim or they are afflicted, and these things should be avoided with respect to disabled people because it gives a negative self-worth. Negative self-worth matlab it puts them stating that they are some kind of sorry. They should be sorry for the disabilities that they own. ठीक है? So it gives a kind of negative self-worth. Self-worth reduces. Okay, because of usage of such words. Okay, what we need to do, for example, we need to avoid representation in terms of suffering or victim and all that, but we also need to provide accurate representation. Accurate representation kaise aayega? How do you inculcate accurate representation? By involving the person with disability. We need to involve the person with disability for creation and assessment of visual media content. So this was the case of visual media content. That's why Supreme Court was stating in this context, if we are creating a visual media content, we need to ensure that while creating this content, we also have into account into the board the presence of physical person with disabled people. Okay? So if they are already present, so you will be able to better use the terms because then they will also be having a say. Okay? The third guideline that Supreme Court has stated with respect to person with disability is that there is a difference between creative freedom versus marginalized portrayals. ठीक है. Creative freedom is a positive connotation. Creative freedom matlab you can create something to denote their situation in a better format rather than a marginalized portrayal. Portrayal, for example, marginalized portrayal can be the examples of calling them as victim, or that they are suffering from them, or use of terms like bechara, theek hai. So these kind of terms which denotes as negative self-worth, these are all examples of marginalized portrayals, that these are marginal sections of society, theek hai. These are different from the usual societies. So Supreme Court has stated that creative freedom is not lampooning. Lampooning matlab making fun in a state that the person against whom you are making fun of, that individual feels bad, theek hai. It is not equal to freedom to lampoon or stereotype or misrepresent. If you have the creative freedom, you need to show that freedom in generating a content, and a healthy content rather than a derogatory content. The derogatory content creation is done in marginalized portrayal, theek hai. And fourth and final one is the collaboration with disability advocacy group, theek hai. We need to gain insights on respectful and accurate portrayal, and better training programs needs to be carried out so that you have involvement of person with disability, theek hai. So these were some of the guidelines. Now talking about the statistics of disabled people in India. India में approximately 2.21% people are disabled, theek hai, amongst which there are more number of men as compared to more women. 2.4% men, whereas 2% women, theek hai. Unfortunately, in India, most number of disabled are in the age group of 10 to 19 years. That means adolescent men are highest number of disabled people in India as compared to any other section of society, theek hai. 70% of the disabled are in rural India. This also denotes this relationship, that disability is directly proportional. Disability is directly proportional to poverty. ठीक है. So 70% of the disabled in India are poor. That is denoting this fact that anybody who becomes disabled, they are not able to contribute to social development. They themselves become poor. ठीक है. And fourth and final data is disabilities का percentage distribution. उसमें सबसे ज़्यादा are locomotive disability. Locomotive disability, but मतलब कि they are not able to move their either hands or legs or neck. Some portion of their body they are not able to move. ठीक है. Close to similar are visual impairments and hearing impairments also, and 8% are multiple disabilities. ठीक है. So this is what we need to remember with respect to disability statistics. Now, what does the Constitution say? ठीक है. Constitution में we have preamble which says we need to ensure socio-economic and political justice to all citizens. Social, economic and political justice matlab you need to be equal to any other individual irrespective of any kind of disability or any kind of sickness, ठीक है, और मतलब limited category of sickness. So you need to be equal to all other citizens, ठीक है. So to ensure this also, we need to ensure that those who are disabled need not be marginalized in the society, ठीक है. Secondly, Constitution में we also have DPSP's Directive Principles of State Policy, which says Article 41 कि work, education and public assistance needs to be provided to old age, sick, disabled and unemployed, ठीक है. And thirdly is the schedules of the Constitution, जिसमें 12th state subject में 7th schedule में state subject में we have relief of the disabled, whereas 11th and 12th schedule which is talking about पंचायती राज के subjects या ULBs, urban local bodies के subjects में we have welfare of the disabled and mentally retarded. So relief to be given by state government and welfare of these people to be granted by the third tier of the governance, ठीक है. Now, what are the legal provisions? Mental Health Care Act, because in India maybe Rights of Person with Disability Act 2017 maybe we have included mental illness also as one of the disability. So Mental Health Care Act is one of the legal provision, Act of 2013, which defines the state of mental illness. There are a list of diseases which are being stated under Mental Health Care Act. This act has also led to creation of mental health institutions, statutory status to mental health institutions, which was into news last year also, because Supreme Court was objecting due to one of the case that has come up from National Human Rights Commission. National Human Rights Commission, or NHRC, stated that MHIs in India have extremely poor quality standards. Okay? Plus, Mental Health Care Act of 2013 has also decriminalized suicide. Now, another legal provision is Rights of Person with Disability Act of 2016, which says that we need to provide reservation in government jobs. This was earlier 3%, has been increased to 4%, and educational institutions में 4% reservation was already existing. This was increased to 5%. Okay? So, educational institutions में you have more reservation. Employment, government employment में you have lesser reservation, that is approximately 4%. Okay? Then we have the Rehabilitation Council of India Act 1992, which gave the statutory status to Rehabilitation Council of India, Rehab Council of India. इनका क्या काम है? Because this is the rehab की council, so they will be the regulators, the coordinators, the quality checkpoints for the rehabilitation centers in India. So they regulate and monitor services and standardized syllabi for personnel who are working in the rehabilitation council. Okay? Now, what are the welfare programs? Accessible India campaign. This was Accessible India campaign का prime motive was transportation development. ठीक है, so a better accessibility of transport sector, of visually impaired people के लिए braille availability at all areas should be available. Ramp at government offices or public offices is mandatory. This was the intention of Accessible India campaign. ठीक है, somewhat similar was the Deen Dayal Disabled Rehabilitation Scheme. Rehabilitation scheme में apart from accessibility, it was also talking about rehabilitations. मतलब rehabilitation center पे funding has to be required. Rehabilitation center needs better personnel, better trained people to deal with either mentally or physically disabled people. ठीक है? So rehabilitation के reformation के लिए we had Deen Dayal Disabled Rehabilitation Scheme. Then we had assistance to disabled person for purchase of aids and appliances. So as the name suggests, that development of better appliances, scientifically very well equipped appliances के लिए there should be some kind of assistance. So financial assistance was provided for aids and appliances. For example, locomotive disability because of lack of functioning leg. So in that case, an extra rod has to be put up so that the individual is capable of walking. So this becomes an aid or an appliance. So financial assistance to buy this needs to be provided on this scheme. Okay? Then we have Indian Sign Language Research and Training Center. That is done to develop HR, that is human resource in sign language. We need to develop the sign language also, such that for every language we need to have a sign language. Okay? Plus, we also need to develop the human resource on the sign language problem. Okay? Then we also have the National Institute of Mental Health Rehabilitation, which is again talking about betterment, rehabilitation of mentally ill patients. Okay? So these are some of the welfare programs running by government. Now, what are the challenges being faced by people with disability? The first challenge is the social challenge, which is the biggest challenge actually. Baki sab to we can very well understand that because of disability they are not getting educated, they are not getting employment. But the social challenge is a bigger one because the society is not accepting them. Social challenge, especially with respect to mentally ill patient. Because mental illness or stress related, anxiety related, depression related diseases are not considered or not very well accepted in society. It is a taboo to discuss about mental illness. Okay? So discrimination and inequality, especially with respect to mental illness. Okay? The social challenge is also their identity. Their identity is lost. The only identity left about that individual is the kind of disability that an individual faces. For example, we know one of the very prominent businessmen by the name Shrikant, on whose name we had a recent movie also. Okay? But society doesn't know Shrikant from his name. They know him because of the disability, because of his inability to see or visual impairment. So the identity is limited or restricted to the impairment related to that individual, irrespective of him becoming the CEO of a major company. Okay? So that is also one of the social challenge, plus the social status, that the social status of the individual obviously declines at the initial stages when the individual has not overcome with that discrimination or disability. Till then there is a declining social status. Okay? And the inhuman treatment again related to the mentally ill patients, or as the physically or visually impaired patients also. Okay? Then they have the barriers to education. For example, we do not have special schools related to people suffering from suffering from disability, some or the other kind of disability. Inke liye we do not have proper schools. Even if you have schools, you do not have proper trained teachers. Okay? So teachers are lacking, and most importantly, the study material itself is lacking. Okay? So learning disabilities are shunned basically. So that the individual will not be able to learn because of inability to access education, access school, access teacher, that has become the new age problem with respect to person with disability. But apart from this, we also are not able to provide them with better health facility. For example, communication issues, physical issues, or financial issues. For example, an individual is not able to access MHIs, or they are not able to access rehabilitation centers, and that was also related to mental health issues. For example, an individual who is not able to see, for them employment becomes very difficult, so they will be suffering from financial difficulties. Okay? Yeah, physical disabilities, for example, because of locomotive disability, that is a physical disability. So why is it a health facility? We have not been able to provide a proper health facility to, and that leads to financial constraints, that leads to physical constraints, and that leads to the communication constraints also. Okay? Apart from this, unemployment is also very high with respect to disabled people, because the norm says that the employer will be reluctant to hire any individual from the disability community. Okay? And of course, the issue is that of accessibility also. For example, we do not have ramps in public facilities even till date, despite of passing this act in 2016 itself. We have not been able to provide ramp in public facility. Okay? So why is this issue pertaining, we have not been able to provide them with ramp facility till date, is the reasonable accommodation related issue. So what do we mean by reasonable accommodation? Reasonable accommodation matlab, you need to be accommodative to this fact that the person with disability needs some kind of assistance to become equal to rest of the society. Okay? There's a social norms, the legal the rules, the laws should be accommodative of this fact that these people are incapable of becoming equal to society. So we need to uplift them, provide them with opportunities such that they become equal. Okay? So that is the meaning of reasonable accommodation. Okay? This we've understood. And the legal framework is reasonable accommodation has been provided in Rights of Person with Disability Act 2016. Okay? The examples of this can be, a simple example can be public facilities mein availability of ramp, lift mein availability of braille facility so as to identify 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever be the number of floors. Okay? So these are some of the examples, common examples of reasonable accommodation, such that they become equal to rest of the society. They are capable. This is all visual impairments ke liye, locomotive impairments, disability ke liye. You can uplift them, ensure them that they are able to perform as good as the other rest of the members of the society. Okay? So that is the example. But the benefits is such that there is a huge chunk, approximately 2% of the population, with whom we are not able to make the society more inclusive. If we are able to provide them with reasonable accommodation, the society will be much more inclusive. Okay? And we will be able to, if we see it in terms of pure economics, we will be able to generate GDP, we will be able to generate human capital, better human capital, if we are much more inclusive for that matter. Okay. What are the exemptions to reasonable accommodation? That there are given certain assumptions if your expenses are very high, so you can skip out on the reasonable accommodation for development of ramps, development of braille facilities and all that. So it should not be putting up an undue burden. That is the exception that has been given. But unfortunately, as we can guess, that the exception has been most commonly used as an excuse to not follow reasonable accommodation. For example, that there is reluctance in implementation of reasonable accommodation. Why this reluctance? Is because of the cost concerns. Okay? It will involve some kind of cost. It will involve an individual which should be present in the board members to ensure the accessibility issues, to ensure health facilities to a person with disability, and that will involve cost. So the employer is reluctant to put up reasonable accommodation. Apart from this, there are prejudices with the employer, that this person may not be contributing as much as compared to rest of the employees. So that there are certain prejudices associated to person with disability, that because they are not equal to the rest of the society, so they may not be able to significantly contribute. Okay? But apart from this, they also have this excuse of undue burden, because the government in Person of Right with Disabilities Act has also given this provision that in case of undue burden, you have the option of not proceeding with reasonable accommodation. So that excuse also they make use of. Plus there is lack of awareness with the employer, lack of awareness with the person with disability, that government also helps in providing this provision of this facilities if you are ready to proceed for reasonable accommodation. So let's say financial assistance, tax incentives, tax holidays, all of these provisions are there if the employer is ready to proceed with reasonable accommodation. Okay? What can be done in this regard? We need to incentivize the employer in terms of tax credit, deductions and subsidy if you are able to provide reasonable accommodation. Okay? Plus cost sharing needs to be done. Cost sharing between the public and private sector, between the employer and the government, can be carried out to ensure reasonable accommodation. Then we need to utilize the national fund, the fund of rights of person with disability. This act in 2016 also created a fund. Okay? We need to utilize this fund for the development of infrastructure for reasonable accommodation. And we need a clarification of undue burden. What exactly amounts to undue burden? Till which financial amount are you saying that this will be called as an undue burden? This clarification is required. Okay? Then comes the way forward. We need accommodation and inclusive. The society needs to be much more accommodative and inclusive of this fact that there is 2% of the population that we are not catering to, we are not adhering to, we are not fulfilling them, fulfilling the objectives of preamble of ensuring social justice to them. Okay? We need to identify opportunities to accommodate more people. We need to provide them with better education and job opportunities. Okay? So, for example, let's say 4% reservation in education, 4% reservation in employment and 5% in education. We need to ensure that if we have given them reserved seats, then these seats also needs to be fulfilled. Okay? Then social sensitization, the way we do gender sensitization, we need to proceed with social sensitization also, so that people are much more accommodative or understanding related to this fact that there are persons with disabilities who are not part of the society, who are not able to equally contribute. For example, educate and sensitize by stating terms such as Divyangjan. Okay? Preventive measures for occurrence. For example, we need to carry out newborn screening programs so as to ensure that this case does not come up itself. Okay? Plus interventions in public policy. For example, we need a separate budgeting for persons with disabilities, although proportion to their population, but we require some amount of budget investment for ensuring reasonable accommodation for persons with disability. Okay? So with that, we come to end of this topic. Now let us move to the next topic, which is related to anti-superstition law. So what does the anti-superstition law states? uh, why is the need for this? Because recently Maharashtra and Karnataka have uh, initiated a legislation on anti-superstition. Okay? But despite of this, we have seen so many cases of witchcraft hunting or black magic, so many cases registered for human sacrifices also. Okay? So we are in need of a national anti-superstition law. Matlab states do have, but because the law is not nationalized, so we do not have uniform law across the states. Okay? So currently there are certain gaps in current laws. For example, criminal laws do not specifically target superstitious practices. We do have criminal procedure code, but in this code also superstitious practices are not part of it. Okay? This is one need that we need to create a national level anti-superstition law. Second is existing acts limitation. So we have Drug and Magic Remedies Act, which is Objectionable Advertisement Act. This has certain loopholes. The Drug and Magic Remedies state that the law states that you cannot claim that this drug is a magical drug and it will help you heal with so many family related issues, your employment related issues, your family crisis, financial crisis, employment, educational crisis. All of this will be resolved if you consume this medicine. So these kind of objectionable advertisements cannot be made. So this law restricts it. But there are certain loopholes in this act also, which are misused by those people who practice either black magic, that is what they claim, or human sacrifices. So they make use of the loopholes present in this act of 1954, which is creating this reason that we need to have a national anti-superstition law. Okay? This also fails to address several superstitious activities. So there are list of activities which have been mentioned under this act, but it does not encompass all the superstitious activities, which also adds to the limitation of the existing act. Okay? Then third is the successful state models. So Maharashtra and Karnataka have tailored legislation. So depending upon what is the most important issue in their region, they have tailored the legislation. For example, we know the maximum number of witchcraft cases or witchcraft hunting cases are taking place in Assam. Okay? So Assam also needs to tailor the legislation tending towards witchcraft hunting or human sacrifices. So depending upon what is your region's most important issue, we can proceed with tailored legislation. So, but a national law, national model law will give some idea to states that these areas needs to be restricted. Okay? Then need for a comprehensive coverage. National law will give a comprehensive coverage. All the regions these are the total number of issues. Whatever be the issue in your region, that needs to be tackled in a localized manner. This is also one of the reasons that we need to have a national anti-superstition law. Okay? But what are the implementation challenges? The implementation challenges include, most importantly, the reluctance to file cases, the reluctance to register cases from the family side, from the victim's side. Victim's family is usually not ready to register the cases, because once they register the case, then the society will become much more offensive, will turn out to be much more offensive against the victim's family. So they will be penalizing the victim's family much more. So they don't register the cases. Plus, even if they go to police doesn't register the case, because police also has to stay with the same society. The local police specifically has to stay with the same society, and there will be public outrage against the police itself. So the police is reluctant to register the case. They will be outcasted. They will be socially boycotted. So they are reluctant to file the case. Plus, there are political interference also. Political interference, for example, a strong caste or dominant caste in a particular region, if they have practiced some kind of superstition, so there is political influence that because this caste is dominant in this region, so we cannot go against them. So political interference will be in favor of them, rather bending towards them, taking decision in the favor of a political dominant caste, even if they have conducted a superstitious activity. Okay? Plus, the conviction rate is also quite low. Conviction rate is also quite low. Even if the cases are filed, there are no actions taken against the accused. Okay? This also demotivates the fact of filing cases. Second problem in implementation or challenge is the lack of sensitization. Okay? Law enforcement agencies also have some kind of cultural biasness. Law enforcement agencies में judges आ जाएंगे, lawyers आ जाएंगे, prosecution lawyers आ जाएंगे, police आ जाएगी. So all these law enforcement agencies also have a cultural biasness. They say that amongst this caste it happens. It happens, let's say, because the caste is lower, because the caste is upper, because the caste is strong, because the caste is weak. So it takes place. Or religion. So is the case with religion, because the religion is weak, religion is strong. So there are cultural biasness amongst the law enforcement agencies also, which reduces the registration of case. Okay? And third is the caste discrimination. This not always addressed or recognized by the authorities. So caste discrimination, because it is talking about the dominant caste, most commonly it is done by the dominant caste. So in that case, they have this reluctance. The authorities, law enforcement agencies also have reluctance in registration of the cases. Okay? Because it is related to caste. Now, while creating the national anti-superstition law, we also need to keep in mind that there needs to be a balance between the law and the religious practices. As Indrani Mukherjee in the case of Sabrimala, she stated that judiciary should not be intervening in the religious matters of the people. So when we are creating a national anti-superstition law, we need to ensure this fact that the law and the religion should go hand in hand. Excuse me. There should be a balance between these two. Okay? So how do you do this? By defining the exploitative practices. How do you balance between the law and the religious freedom? By defining the exploitative practices. So for example, it so happened in Calcutta that there was a religious procession in which human skull was being carried by saints in a procession, which was blocked by the SP, Superintendent of Police of Kolkata. Okay? So this is and Supreme Court, the case went up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that this is not a essential practice to maintain the religion. Doctrine of essentiality is not fulfilled, so we will not be allowing you to proceed with such kind of processions. Okay? So we need to define exploitative practice, and this was the example where law came into conflict with religious freedom, and the weightage was given to law. Matlab, religious freedom is all fine, but doctrine of essentiality also needs to be fulfilled. Okay? So we need to define the exploitative practices, and we need to demarcate between superstitious practice. These are the superstitious practices from the religious freedom. We need to prevent judicial overreach. If you have to prevent judicial overreach, we need to demarcate that these will be called as the superstitious practices and these will be marked as a religious freedom. This should be allowed to exercise, this should not be allowed to exercise. And if you have to ensure that judicial overreach does not take place, then judiciary needs to be informed about the law. Okay? Second is we need to protect the fundamental right. For example, 25 we say that it is Article 25 is the freedom to practice religion. But 25 also has reasonable restriction. 21 also talks about right to life, and somebody's right to life cannot and somebody's right to practice freedom cannot supersede another individual's right to life. Okay? So 25 in right to freedom of practicing a religion cannot supersede an individual's right to live. Okay? Yeah, 17 which talks about right against untouchability. Why are we discussing about untouchability with respect to superstition is because majority of the cases of superstition or human sacrifices that takes place is that of the community which are mostly untouchables. Okay? So because we have the constitutional articles, fundamental rights related to this, so we also need to ensure that there is a backing of law which supersedes the religious freedom. Okay? And thirdly is the judicial oversight. We need to prevent the misuse of law against religious practices. Again, the same thing, until and unless the point exploitative practices or superstitious practices has been described, has been detailed, it is difficult for the judiciary also to demarcate between them. If we have to prevent judicial overreach, we need to create two separate tables for these two lists. ठीक है. So talking about some of the statistics related to black magic, witchcraft related death and human sacrifices. Witchcraft related death has been much more as compared to the human sacrifices, because this is women who are involved here and they easily become the scapegoat. So witchcraft related sacrifices, you see, 2012 May it was approximately 121, but which increased to 161, all time highest in 2013. It has decreased continuously and decreased significantly between 16 to 17, but again 19 May we have seen a jump. 19, 20, 21 May again it has started to decrease. So witchcraft related death is approximately currently in the range of 60s and 70s. Okay? And human sacrifices has been quite low. 2021 May there were only 6 registered cases for human sacrifices. Talking about the statistics, 2021 का National Crime Records Bureau states that human sacrifices में 6 deaths have been reported and 68 deaths because of witchcraft. Okay? Maximum number of witchcraft reports have come from Chhattisgarh, MP and Telangana, and maximum number of witchcraft related deaths in the period between 2001 and 21 has come from Jharkhand. Okay? But apart from this, we have a good number of cases related to witchcraft and human sacrifices from West Bengal and Assam also. Okay? Talking about the case, this data we have already seen, but let's analyze this. Jharkhand में 2001 to 21 में maximum number of witchcraft related deaths have been registered. Okay? Talking about the law, कि central law नहीं है. We do not have a central law related to black magic and superstition. There is a section 302 of IPC, section 302 of IPC which takes cognizance of this fact, but this takes place only after death. Takes cognizance of human sacrifice, but only after the murder is committed. Matlab, you cannot prevent the commitment, you cannot prevent murder. Once a murder is committed, then you can deal the case under black magic and superstition under section 302 of IPC. Then we have section 295 of IPC, which discourages such practices. Okay? And we have the Drugs and Magic Remedies Act 1954, remember, which was talking about you cannot claim that such and such drug can help you heal with such and such problems. Okay? To tackle the debilitating impact of various superstitious acts. For example, that a family or a village group complains that this lady is a witch and we need some kind of drug to rectify the witch behavior in this lady. Okay? So this is prevented under Drugs and Magic Remedies Act of 1954. Then Bihar became the first state to enact a law to prevent witchcraft and identification of women as a witch. But apart from this, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Assam, Maharashtra, Karnataka have also passed similar laws. Although the implementation of such law becomes quite poor, as we have seen the fact that law enforcement agencies are reluctant to register the cases. If they are ready to register the cases, there is political interference, and political interference leads to low conviction rate. Okay? So what should be the suggestive solution? First and foremost, we need to sensitize the law enforcement agency. Capacity building needs to be carried out. Training of the police officers, the sub-inspector and inspector level officers needs to be carried out. Havaldars need to be carried out. Training needs to be carried out. The intention here is because these people are mostly connected to the grassroots democracy. And until and unless we have not trained these individuals, we cannot bring up any change in the society. So we need to carry out capacity building, and police should act as a first responder. We need to also address the cultural biasness and enhance the ability to handle superstitious practices. That's what capacity building can help us deal with superstitious practices in a better way. Secondly is restorative justice. Restorative justice matlab we need to restore peace in society, reintroduce stability in society. How do you do this? Let's say society has declared somebody as witch, so you need to provide them with self-employment opportunities. You need to provide them with some kind of self-belief, self-worth, that they are capable of independent existence, and they will be able to positively contribute to the society. Okay? So victim compensation funds need to be created and ensure the capability of the self-employment of that individual, the victim. Okay? Third is we need to foster scientific temperament. foster scientific temperament. This is also mentioned in our fundamental duty that scientific temperament has to be developed. Okay? Educational reforms and public awareness campaigns need to be carried out, especially by selecting those districts, those areas, those regions where you have maximum registration of cases under witchcraft or black magic. Okay? And we need to also monitor implementation by regularly reviewing and amending the laws, updating and reforming the laws if the laws are incapable. For example, we were able to see less addressing of cases, less cases registration itself taking place in child sexual abuse. But then non-reporting of cases was also made as a criminal act, which increased the child sex abuse reporting of cases by a significant number. So something similar can be introduced here also. Non-reporting will also be declared as a criminal act. Okay? So that can ensure that at least the cases are getting registered. Okay? So these are some of the suggestive solutions, and with that we come to the end of this topic. Now the third topic is talking about agriculture. Agriculture may there are some updates coming from budget, some updates related to agricultural tax exemption. So with those points in mind, we will be discussing about what are the last week's update related to agriculture. This is not about all the topics in agriculture, specifically talking about agricultural tax exemption, should it be done or should it not. And we also will be discussing about the budget related initiatives with respect to agriculture. Okay? So talking about the agriculture statistics, it says 45.8% of the workforce are in agriculture. Talking about the working age population, 45% of the working age population are engaged in agriculture. But unfortunately, the revenue generated from agriculture is only 15%. 15% they contribute to GDP. Okay? Talking about the research funding statistics, agricultural research intensity is quite low. If we see the intensity, the meaning of intensity is matlab ki how much funding are you able to pump in agricultural research, and what is the revenue that we are generating from agricultural research. Iska ratio. Okay? So how much percentage we are able to pump in? It was 0.43% as compared to the revenue versus 0.75% in 2008-9. Okay? So the intensity has also decreased. This is the figure in 2008-9. This is the figure in 22-23. So research intensity matlab research mein funding versus how much revenue we are able to generate from GDP. Generate for GDP. Okay? This has decreased. And secondly, this has been discussed by economic survey also, that there are faulty policies practiced in agriculture. For example, seeds are subsidized, fertilizer is subsidized, electricity is subsidized, water is subsidized, mechanization is subsidized. So there are so many subsidies that we give, and all of these subsidies are actually a burden on the exchequer. Okay? We have not been, if we have studied about Amartya Sen's concept of capability approach, that means Indian agriculture or Indian farmers have not been, the policies that we have taken since 1947 till 2023 or 24, these policies has nowhere ensured that the farmers are capable of generating, sufficient amount of revenue to buy seeds, to buy fertilizer, to buy water, to buy land, whatever it is. Farmers' capability has not improved. We have only subsidized, and the cycle in which we are existing currently, this has increased the carbohydrate intake. Carbohydrate intake has increased diabetes related issue. The HYV seeds related green revolution policy, although that time it was very much required, but till now we have not been able to shift away. This has introduced HYV related seeds. HYV related seeds in turn have decreased the soil quality, soil fertility. Okay? So the policies that we have been following is an incorrect policy. We need to drift away from this policy, update the policy. So talking about the budget initiatives, the recent budget that came up last week, isme 109 HYV climate resilient variety of 32 crops shall be introduced for Indian farmers. Okay? So high yield variety, which is also climate resilient for such crops, for 32 such crops, 109 varieties has been introduced. Okay? Then natural farming को promote करना भी हमारा intention रहेगा with respect to budget. In this, the government has promised that 10 million farmers will be transformed towards natural farming, organic farming in next 2 years, and 10,000 bio input resource center. Bio input resource center can be an initiative, for example, under Govardhan scheme. So under Govardhan scheme, what are we doing? We are generating the fertilizer by making use of the cow dung. ठीक है? So this can be an example of bio input resource center. ऐसे 10,000 centers will be set up across the country. ठीक है? That is the initiative related to natural farming. Thirdly, large scale vegetable clusters needs to be created, because during rainy season we have seen that vegetable prices rising has led to major food inflation. ठीक है? So we will be creating vegetable cluster closer to market or consumption center to ensure the price stability. And next, we will also be creating digital public infrastructure. Digital public infrastructure, for example, digital crop survey in 400 districts. What is the average production of these variety of crops that we have been introducing? So what is the crop productivity? What is the changes in soil quality? How is it reacting to change in climatic conditions? So all of this will be studied digitally, and distribution of Kisan credit cards to farmers will be carried out digitally in 5 states. Okay. Then government has also promised that we will be gaining self-sufficiency in pulses and oilseeds, and we will be reducing imports. Oilseeds is a major chunk of India's food imports. Okay. But what is the budget allocation? What are the issues? First major issue is inadequate allocation. So talking about agricultural research, usme funding has reduced. Budget for apex agricultural research institutions mein the funding has reduced. Plus National Mission for Organic Farming or Natural Farming, that was called as Pradhan Mantri Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, isme bhi the funding has reduced. ठीक है? And then we are promising that we will be introducing promoting natural farming. Second is there is lack of clear roadmap. For example, budget for agriculture and allied sector has grown by 6%. That means agriculture may we are not investing sufficiently, but allied sector may we are investing. We also need to address policy issues which are still pending. For example, reducing subsidy, increased investment. These are not addressed. This we need to do. Okay? So these were the lacuna in the budget that we were expecting and could not see this. Plus, in last week's agriculture, there was also some of the articles related to Maize Revolution. Okay? So what is the significance associated to this? What is the significance of maize in India? It is a major feed for poultry and livestock, a major chunk. 60% of the maize production is headed towards the poultry and livestock feed. But apart from this, we also use it for generation of ethanol production, especially when the sugarcane production is in off season. So that time corn based ethanol production comes into force. And thirdly, is the industrial application. Industrial application of corn is also required in textile, paper, pharma, food and beverage industry. Okay? Now, what are the recent developments? Indian Agriculture Research Institute, they have created a Waxy Maize. Waxy Maize ki capability kya hai? Ki this can generate more amount of ethanol. This is a lab produced maize, but this can be used to produce more of ethanol. Okay? Then collaboration with UP Distilleries Association, so as to ensure ki the distilleries will be able to will be given some major input from the maize that we are producing. Okay? And the cross pollination nature. Cross pollination nature is also one of the important reasons that we can generate a very different new varieties of maize can be created. For example, wheat या rice के case में self pollination takes place. In the same flower, you have the male and female gametes which fuse and the final produce is created. But in case of maize, cross pollination is required. So one is a male flower, the other one is a female flower, and cross pollination is required. So this can give us an opportunity of creating different varieties of maize. Okay? Then talking about the last part, which is the agricultural tax exemption, which is also related to agriculture in news last week. So there are certain discussions that we need to start taxing agriculture sector also. Okay? So far, agriculture may all the farmers, be it small, be it marginal, be it large farmers, all of them, if you declare, if any individual for that matter declares any income as an agriculture income, there will be no tax charge on that income. Okay? So what is the rationale behind exempting agriculture from taxes is because states legislate on agriculture income and states are unwilling to create a law on legislation of agricultural income. Okay? Secondly, it is a very high risk profession. That is most important reason. 85% of the farmers in India are small and marginal. Small and marginal farmers comprise of 85% farmers. So obviously, being a very risky business and a large chunk of farmers being small, less than 1 hectare, correct? Less than 1 hectare of land, that denotes that they are putting huge amount of risk in the business venture that they are setting up. Okay? So that is also a justified exemption that agricultural income need not be taxed. Okay? But what are the issues of giving a tax exemption? What are the issues that if we do not tax agricultural income, इससे क्या problem आ रहा है? ठीक है? First is there are certain non-agricultural entities and high income individuals. For example, there was a recent report on CAT 20 which was talking about 2012 tax exemptions claimed by certain people. These were non-agricultural entities who have claimed, who have stated that this income was part of their agricultural income and they have used the benefit. So non-agricultural entities are also gaining the benefit of agricultural tax exemption. Secondly, the majority chunk of this money is used for money laundering or routing of the black money. So if they have to convert a black money into white money, they declare it as an agricultural income, no tax to be paid, and the entire money turns out to be a white money. Okay? So this is used for money laundering or routing of black money. Thirdly, 0.4% hold over 10 hectares. So this chunk, we have always seen this number, 85% are small and marginal farmer. But large farmers are approximately 0.4%. If we are able to charge them on 30% tax bracket, there will be a huge amount of revenue that can be generated here. Plus, no benefit. Actually, if we are giving agricultural tax exemption, the real benefit is not gained by the small and marginal farmers because their income is not even in the taxable part of the income. So agricultural tax income ko tax exemption ko dene ka logic itself is incorrect because the small and marginal farmers are anyways not taking the benefit of it. So these are the issues related to tax exemption. What should be the suggestive solutions? That we need to have a proper tax regime with slabs to protect the small farmers. The way we go for a direct taxation, similarly we need to generate such kind of tax slabs for farmers also, such that small and marginal farmers are exempted from paying taxes, but at least we are able to get taxes from large farmers. Okay? A total exemption is also not very healthy option. Secondly, we need to scrutinize the high agricultural income claims. For example, somebody claiming 10 lakh in 1 month, 10 lakh in 45 days. This is a very high agricultural claim and they are going for an agricultural tax exemption. This is also not acceptable. This we need to remove or reduce exemption. Okay? So, talking about the agriculture mein suggestive solutions, we need to enhance, most importantly, this is a very serious upcoming challenge, that we need to enhance climate resilience to climate change. For this, we have already initiated a project called NICRA, which is shifting our agriculture, Indian agriculture, towards a climate resilient agriculture. But apart from this, we also need to shift the policy support. As we have studied, the Green Revolution was fine, but till in 1970s and 80s, it was all fine. Now is the time we need to shift away from Green Revolution and shift towards organic farming. So policy support and incentives should be done in favor of organic farming, sustainable practices, and Vivek Debaroy Committee and Niti Aayog in 3-year action plan has spoken about agricultural tax. So we need to introduce agricultural tax, be it in slabs, be it in any manner possible, but agricultural may high income individuals needs to be taxed, so that we need to ensure that this routing of conversion of black money to white money can be avoided, or non-agricultural entities claiming tax benefit under agricultural tax exemption can be avoided. Okay? So with that, we come to the end of this topic as well. I wish you all the very best. If you have any doubt, please do let us know in the comment section. Thank you so much.